Here we are in episode 15 of the Simple Success Podcast. This is financial life coaching from a happiness perspective. Coaching happiness. When you change you change everything. Last week, we talked about income tax. This week, the pod is about charitable remainder trusts. What? What on earth is that? It's a simple way to let everyone know in advance what you want to have your money do for you and for others, and even after you're gone. If you reach your goals and you get to a point in life where you have complete confidence in yourself and your money, then you can entertain some additional possibilities for income. And this is one of the possible ways that could work for you. Our goal is to allow you to have enough comfort today and tomorrow to open up destinations in your mind that might be different from what you've had before, or perhaps in addition to ones you've had. There's a lot of technical details we can go into, like how a charitable remainder trust, or any of a number of different types of charitable trusts, is a type of split interest trust, how the powers that be look at trust assets, and how the beneficiary of a charitable remainder trust must be an organization described in Internal Revenue Code section 170 subparagraph C. The rules matter. That could be a private foundation, a religious organization, a public charity, or even something called a DAF, DAF, or Donor Advised Fund. Gifts like these can be interesting and beneficial uses of the property and a way to reach a charitable beneficiary or other income beneficiaries in a way we might want to talk more about. There are other considerations like cost and like giving the power of changes to the trust to an independent trustee so that there's no risk of the money ending up in your estate at the end of any given period where it gets taxed and where that money does not go to your family. Nobody gets that all-important income tax deduction, let alone the possible additional psychological benefit of a charitable deduction. It can be important to have a revocable trust, and it can be important to have an irrevocable trust. The type of trust is a consideration when taking stock of this picture. There are more details to CRTs as they're known than you really want to know, or at least are ready to know. What I want to convey is that I can help you with that if you are ready to make those kinds of contributions. If you want to cash in and if you are ready to put capital there, let me know and let's talk in more detail. But more than that, as with everything else in this podcast, it's separating the idea of understanding the topic from the idea of getting caught up in the topic before it's time. Then further, not letting there be a gap between understanding and doing. I'm reminded of my absolute favorite quote, and it's not one that I came up with. It's F. Scott Fitzgerald's, "The test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposing ideas in mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function." This means that you understand how something works, even if you don't agree with it. We could dive deeper into how it's not really possible to disagree with something with which you don't understand, but that's for a different podcast. And by the way, that's another method for avoiding rabbit holes. So understand it, but don't let it stop you. That's the gist of it. We'll get back to the story in just a minute. Hello, everyone. This is John with the Simple Success Podcast. Financial life coaching from a happiness perspective. Because we know you want to show us some serious love in return for the tremendous benefits you get from us, please head over to https://anchor.fm/ Simple Success. That's one word, Simple Success / support. There, you can choose from a $9.99 per month doer level of support, a $4.99 listener level, or a basic intro level of just 99 cents per month. That's not much when you compare it to a stockbroker, right? And this is so much more sensible. To leave us a voice message, which just might see the light of day in a future podcast, go to https://anchor.fm/ Simple Success, again, one word, Simple Success / message. I won't repeat those links because weird, and anyway, show notes. Once upon a time, our friend Daniel Rose was considering what to do. He had a choice to make regarding whether or not to leave all of those extra assets that he had saved to his son Brian or to his favorite charity, or at least one of his favorite charities. He was perplexed about this. The charitable income tax seemed to be the only source of the returns he was seeking. He thought that he had to make a choice between the two kinds of investment income. He didn't realize that he could do both, that he could have both payouts. Because he didn't know, he went to some independent, or at least theoretically independent sources. He consulted people who would know, people who should know. But he didn't consider their position, their bias, if you will. He didn't consider how it fits their goals. Like, for instance, if someone is offering a product, you, like Daniel, need to consider why they're doing it. If their motivation is for you to consider only your family and 0 charities, then their advice will lean in that direction. If their motivation is for you to consider only charities, then the same thing is true. In reverse, if you doubt this, Bring to mind a time back in 2008 when lots of people were telling you about your so-called 201k. I promise you, they were not selling stocks. Full disclosure, they were selling real estate. And I'm not against real estate, just full disclosure. We have to focus on what you and I in our individual situations think is right. The areas from which we get our potential income streams can mean the difference between income for life and being forever tied to figuring out new sources of funding for your lifetime income. I prefer to start by understanding so that I get the initial funding decisions right. Get advice from somebody who also understands what you want to do and why you want to do it. How we overcome this is right after the break. Let's get on with how to overcome this kind of problem, what to do and when and how to do it. Charitable remainder trusts. First, we make a decision about what we want to see done. What is our goal? What is the feeling we want to create? What is the result we want to generate? What makes us happy? What floats our boat? For many people, it's taking care of family as well as self. Having a solid future income stream will go a long way toward this. For many people, it's giving to one or more charities as well. Using trust income for that can be huge. You can consider yourself and your family as the most important charities if you want. That's valid estate planning, because whether or not you have a sizable estate, you will have estate taxes. I'll take any answer as long as you're willing to think about it first and revise it from time to time. Just don't let things get in the way. There's a ton of things that could if you let them, but you won't. You won't think about when you're going to retire. You won't think about taxes or income limitation. Heck, you won't even think about last night. I'm not saying that any of the things you could spend time thinking about are bad things. I'm just acknowledging how our brains work and making that fit in with the habits we develop and the things on which we focus. We're changing the way we look at things, and remember, that's good. Also, remember, this is financial life coaching from a happiness perspective. Coaching happiness. Since a big part of that is your happiness, I'm going to walk down another street, one without those rabbit holes. Sometimes I do that by calling on expert guests, but the most important person I could ever call on is you. In this Simple Success podcast, as well as in our webinars and masterclasses, we are very, very much going to want to hear your story. Well, to be real, I mean in future episodes of the podcast's webinars and masterclasses. This means you. Your participation is critical to our mutual simple success. It's important to know how you think, what you've thought, what you've tried, and what you've been unsure of trying. As we told you at the beginning, and as you also find in the show notes, we have ways you can contact us. It involves a special link where you can leave us a voice message, which just might see the light of day in a future podcast. We may have an email address for you as well in the future, and we'll let you know when that happens. Together, we're going to make it great. We're going to do what even we didn't think possible. We know a lot about you already because we know ourselves. For example, we know that you know how to listen to our podcast. We also know that you probably know how to subscribe. The reason every podcast asks you this is because when you subscribe, you automatically download all future episodes of that podcast. This means better rankings, more attention from advertisers, and more money, and that means more and better stuff for you. So your motivation is simple and easy. Subscribe today, wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Oh, and don't just try to subscribe. There is no try, there is only do. Remember, this is financial life coaching from a happiness perspective. Right after this, we'll explore some more important details you should know, but for now, use your imagination to help create your story. And to remind you, everyone listening can head to that voice message link in the show notes to record a voice message for a future podcast. Anyway, as usual, we wrap up the story with a thing for you to do. Charitable remainder trusts. Here's how we're going to do this. Step 1, identify your goal. You really should be doing this with everything. I bring it up now because charitable remainder trusts, or CRTs, are far less understood than a lot of money topics. In fact, if it weren't for the topic randomizer I mention all the time, you wouldn't be hearing about them right now from me either. We hear about CRTs very rarely. Even seasoned financial advisors hear about these things less often than a bystander might expect. They are far less well known than 401ks, even though they can be critical for estate tax purposes. Is that too ridiculous a thing to say? Nope. There are so many people explaining 401ks that it has to be a serious question. I just answer it here in a practical way instead of the official way. So step 1 again, identify your goal. Certainly that includes you doing well. Does it also include others in your family? Does it include others outside your family, even if it's not a 501c3 organization? We, most importantly you, have to have this firmly in mind before we can consider specific solutions. Is a charitable remainder trust even what you want? Maybe you want a charitable lead trust. Maybe both. Maybe neither. We need to get a lawyer involved for that. Step 2 is have a lawyer that you trust to do a trust. Those are the 2 things I want to know before we go even a word farther. 1, what is your goal for your money? And 2, do you have a lawyer that you trust to do a trust? Those are the steps to complete before you even allow further thoughts to enter your mind. First this, then that. Next week, we're going to look at another concept, and that is your investments. As before, that got picked for me by my topics randomizer, so you know I'm not pre-packaging this stuff, but instead making it relevant so that we can all, me included, learn how to do this right. We're going to bring that into the world of investing. It's going to be a great episode, but for now, remember, happy chocolate-covered cashews day. All you need to do is practice, after which you'll get good. Gracias por escuchar. A la prochaine. For this podcast, the host and audio guy is me, John C. Brandy. My seagull example, and I'll explain that later, Shola Salako, fact checker, Abraham Lincoln, French consultant, Virginia Mitchell, media expert, Favour, Obasi-Ike, psychologist, Sigmund Freud, rabbit hole advisor, Dr. Marg, Perrott, sound designer, Gugliemo Marconi, Spanish consultant, Cameron J.K. Brandy, and videographer, Alfred Hitchcock. Music credit, Cute, by Ben Sound from www.freesound.org.